Hi, everybody. This is Kara Thrasher Livingston with Senior and Disability Services. And we want to welcome you to our provider info sharing webinar. And I want to go ahead and show show the agenda, and I'll have folks sort of introduce themselves as they begin speaking. I know that we do have Carolyn Hogan with us here to go first for sure. And we have everybody else on our training team and Kat, our care coordinator liaison as well. So welcome everybody, and I'll go ahead and show my screen. Oh, let me change myself to the presenter. How's that? That would help.
So as Kara's doing that, let me just really quickly remind everybody to make sure and sign up for the e-alerts and look at your e-alerts. And Caroline is going to talk more about that, about kind of one of the more recent e-alerts that have to do with family caregivers. Caroline, if you want to take it away.
Great, thank you, Kat. Yes, as people are probably aware by now, the public health emergency is going to come to an end on May 11th of 2023. So that's an extra reminder to everybody to keep an eye on your e-alerts, because as we get close to that date, we'll be sharing information, we'll be sharing responses to questions that we're getting. And so that is our main method for communication with you all. So please do keep an eye on your e-alerts, make sure you're subscribed to get them. So I just wanted to come on here for a couple of minutes because I wanted to talk a little bit about family caregivers, legally responsible individuals. During the COVID-19 public health emergency, the state has been granted temporary flexibility to allow legally responsible individuals of a recipient to be paid for certain services to that recipient during this PHE time. So a legally responsible individual is somebody with a legal duty to support. Typically, that's a parent of a minor child, a spouse, or a legal guardian. So the services, we have temporarily allowed them to be provided by an LRI. The services that we have allowed are community first choice personal care services and state plan personal care services. And that flexibility will come to an end for those services on May 11th of 2023. The other services, another service that comes to an end, allowing a legally responsible individual is CHORE, because CHORE is on the CFC platform. And then the other services that we have allowed to have a legally responsible individual provide care are respite, day habilitation, supported living, and in-home supports. So those waiver services, we have a little bit of a longer period to unwind those. We have 6 months post public health emergency. So that brings us closer to November 2023. But with that public health emergency coming to an end on May 11th, we are trying to gather information from providers to determine how much this flexibility was used. And we as a state are trying to explore if this was used a lot, should we explore amending regulations or our Medicaid state plan or waiver applications to see if we should allow this flexibility to become permanent to the extent allowable by the federal government. There are a lot of parameters around this, so we would certainly have to do a lot of exploring and make sure that we can get their permission. So our first step is to gather that information. We sent SDS, we emailed a link to a survey to providers on Thursday, 2/16. And we are asking that one administrator from each provider agency complete the survey. So we sent it to the emails that we have on file for people. So in our Harmony system, whoever is the administrator for that agency will have received the email and the link to our Survey Monkey poll where we're asking questions about how that flexibility was used. And there's several other questions on there, but it shouldn't take too long to complete. I know that we have heard from providers they're having their HR department or their billing department folks complete it. And we just want one person from each agency to complete it. But some of the information is about how many people were hired, how much training was provided, any concerns, things like that. So the information is going to be really valuable to us. We are requesting that the agencies complete the surveys no later than March 3rd of 2023. And then after March 3rd, SDS staff may contact provider agencies directly if we have follow-up questions or if we didn't receive a survey back, because we really want to make sure that we're getting all of the valuable information that we can. For anybody who has questions about the survey, the contact person is Russ Stevens, and his email is russ.stevens, STEVENS, @alaska.gov. So he's the person who is tracking that we're getting the responses from providers. So that's all I had. I just wanted to put that plea out to let people know how important it is that we're trying to gather this information. And of course, once we gather it, then we will determine next steps as to possible stakeholder engagement or what we want to look into next. So, and we really do appreciate everybody's help in getting that to us. That's all I got, Kat.
Thank you, Caroline. And we could also email you guys out the email address for Russ if you have any questions. And this question came up about care coordinators. So care coordinators are not completing the survey. The survey is for provider agencies, right, Caroline?
Correct, because it's for agencies that have hired legally responsible individuals. So that's the information we're trying to gather, is how many people were hired and within that category in the past 3 years. So yeah, it's very pertinent to provider agencies.
Great. Thank you, Caroline. And if our participants have questions, you could put them in the chat and we will try to answer them at the end if we have time to do that. Thank you.
Perfect. All right. Well, I will jump off for now, but thank you for having me for the first few minutes. And I appreciate all that our providers are doing out there. So thank you for all that you do. And we look forward to engaging with you after we've got this survey done and see what sort of data we've collected. Thank you.
Thank you. And some of the other e-alerts recently that were sent out were regarding electronic signatures and the PHE ending. So part of the survey is related to the PHE ending. And if you look in the handouts, you will see the verbal attestation and the electronic guidance handouts that we had shared. And basically, we are continue to accept attestations for the duration of the PHE, but after that, we will be requiring signatures or electronic signatures. So please make sure to review the documents and the attachments. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we can go over those. If we can, if we don't get to those questions today, we will get to them. We will answer them at the next info share, or we will email out the answers. Who wants to take away the next topic, which is full lives, guys?
Hey, it's me, Delight Miles, one of the training specialists, and I'm actually one of the committee members on the Full Lives Planning Committee, and maybe some of you who've joined us are too. And we just are really excited this year. We're having a in-person presentation, an in-person conference for Full Lives, and it is going to be held on April 3rd and 4th. And right now is the time to start considering who you would like to nominate as a DSP and also to submit presentation proposals. Our e-alert system just sent out a reminder about proposals. So do you have something interesting to share that really worked with your agency that helped you build your workforce, or maybe is innovative and new that you think would really help Alaska? Consider putting together a proposal. We are going to have an awards banquet on that same Monday, April 3rd, to honor our DSPs. And we're still kind of finalizing the options for virtual attendance. Most likely, if you are unable to attend in person, you would have access to some of the keynotes that will be recorded after the entire conference is over. It takes a while to prepare all of those recordings for the future. So where else could I find more information about Full Lives Conference? You could actually go to the Alaska Training Cooperative, our partners over there, and they would have more information about the Full Lives Conference, how to nominate a DSP, and submitting proposals. So that will be an excellent resource for you. And then next we have on our agenda is a
Delight,
remind. Oh, go ahead,
before
Cassandra.
you
I hear
go,
you.
I'm sorry, I apologize. But they are nominating care coordinators too, and a care coordinator award will be going out as well.
Oh yeah, they're care coordinators are directly working with the people as well. So our next item on our agenda is just a reminder about the provider Zoom office hours. And we are starting to get more attendees, which is really exciting for us because this is just an opportunity for you to get help on tricky questions. What should you do? Maybe a specific case, maybe a certain situation, and you just want a little bit of assistance. You can pop into our provider office hours every Thursday from 3 to 4. They're set up so that if you have HIPAA related information, we can make sure that it's securely discussed. Or if it's more general, you can talk about it in a larger room. So you can see that the link is on the agenda, and we can drop it into the chat as well. And that takes us to our final item on the agenda here, which is our special topic. So today's special topic is going to be presented by Kara Thrasher Livingston, and she has been pretty much the curriculum designer for HAB services for SDS for a long time on like how we educate on it and specifically who writes what for HAB services. And she has a wealth of information as a provider. She's been a provider. She's been working for the state for an extended period of time, and she has the experience as a family member. So she is going to be the one that's talking to us today about who writes goals. Take it away, Kara.
Awesome. Thank you, Delight. So yeah, one of my favorite topics to talk about, and we've gotten lots of questions about writing goals and who does what and things like that. I'm going to go ahead and set up my screen to show the presentation. And if it comes to be that for whatever reason the audio drops out, just interrupt me, somebody, please, and I'll use the phone instead. But anyway, I also did put in a copy of this into the handout section in PDF form. And as always, we email these out to everybody who is here with us today. So let me go to my presentation. Okay, so this presentation is just going to explain the basics about writing goals and objectives and working together as a team. It's been a real interesting topic over the years in working with providers and how to do this. So let's talk about who writes the goals. By the end of this, you should know a little bit more about defining a personal goal, defining a waiver supported goal, meaning that which is supported by waiver services. You should be able to state who provides the goals in a waiver support plan. You should be able to state the team and typical roles in development of objectives, and also state the team and typical roles in development of interventions. So who identifies the goal? Who writes the goal, so to speak? The individual identifies the goal. This is the person that you're serving. The support plan, every support plan will always have a person's personal goal for all waiver types. We are going to be talking about habilitation services more specifically in this presentation, but it's important to know that all waivers contain personal goals of the individual. Waiver services could support it, possibly not, depending on what is on the person's mind. But ideally, the waiver services will help the person work towards their personal goal. And that support plan is going to be where that's found. So it's going to be in every plan. In terms of working with teams that plan services, If you ever have a question about that, work with the care coordinator, work with the person to discover what their goal is and if you could possibly support it with a service. The person generally tells the care coordinator his or her goal. And this isn't to say that our providers don't also know the person very well and may get communications about goals through that person or directly from that person too. This is just generally how it happens. The habilitation team should meet with the person and the care coordinator for planning how to help the person meet their goal using services. Habilitation services, this is right from the regulation, although we're not here to read regulation out to you. It is a service that helps a person acquire, retain, or improve a skill related to activities of daily living. Self-help, social, and adaptive skills so a person can reside in a non-institutional setting, meaning in the home and community, and are provided in a person's private residence, perhaps an assisted living home or foster home. That's not to say HAB services are only done at home. They are also done in the community because they're about supporting community life. So habilitation services teach the person to learn, develop, or maintain skills in everyday life. In our provider community, there are requirements and regulation to participate in a planning team in order to create a document to go by, a support plan. In the provider conditions of participation, there's many statements that say that as a provider, we'll work with other providers to ensure health and safety for the person during services, and to ensure that services are working well for the person as a team member. For day habilitation and residential habilitation conditions of participation, this is a quote, just one line. There's other lines too, but it does say that our providers will participate in the development of plans of care in collaboration with care coordinators and other service providers. So it's getting at the concept that this is a team working on behalf of the person. In our care coordination conditions of participation, there are a lot of lines that talk about developing a person-centered plan with a planning team process. And this is a quote, to create a written support plan that meets program requirements and specifies the responsibilities of the care coordinator, the recipient, and the recipient's informal and formal supports. So this is just a way of talking about the collaborative team overall, okay? So let's talk about goals. These are common, of course, not every goal there is under the sun that is brought forth by people we serve, but some common goals are things like, I want to communicate so more people can understand me. I want to improve my communication. I want to take care of plants or have a pet. I want to visit my family. I want to keep on taking my medicine without help. I want to have romance in my life. I want to drive a car or live on my own, write a book, be a firefighter or some other profession. I like to play video games. I want to buy things I like. I want to have a job. I don't want people to worry about me so much. I want to have friends and things like that. These are just common. This is what I'm talking about when I say goal. Of course, a goal is very personal. It comes right from the person. This is just a list of things that we hear, things that you may hear, a lot about being, part of your community and having friends and being social, or maybe developing skills, doing more on your own, being more independent, things like that. These are going to come right from the person. When a person is talking about their goal or somebody who helps that person closely, knows that person in the case that they share information other ways than being verbal, we want to be thinking about what waiver service is going to be requested and how that could help the person make progress towards their goal. And start thinking about how staff can help that person with objectives, which are just the steps that they take towards that goal. And does the desired goal and objective seem to match the service? There can be some disconnects between the actual service type that's requested and the goal that the person and a loved one perhaps, or the representative is talking about. We want to stay within the realm of the service itself in order to make real progress and make a relevant set of objectives that will help that person work towards their goal. All right, I welcome your questions along the way. I'm looking at the questions box here. People, it's a statement about people not saying they cannot say they want encouragement or gentle reminders, state they have to be told or made. Recipient would like to, and state, we often put recipient would like to, and state that the goals need to state made to. I think what it's talking about here, what you're talking about here is using more, maybe black and white language in order to describe what it is. I am not, I don't have a directive either way. I think that what might be happening is that it's just not clear what the goal is, or what the staff will do, or what the objective is there. A person can't be made to do anything at the end of the day. It's really about being supportive to help that person with objectives that make sense to them. So maybe it's coming from not being specific enough towards that. That's my best thought right now, but I'll keep thinking about it. So our habilitation services are there. And a unique thing about HAB services is because it's about the ability of the person. So our habilitation services are there because we believe in the ability of a person to take steps towards their goal, to live a community life of their choosing, to engage fully in life, to be active in life to the best of a person's ability and desire, with the support of waiver services that are just about that, living in the community. A person can choose to participate in their service, on a kind of on a micro level. There's going to be some days when a person probably won't want to do something, or an objective is no longer relevant to them or interesting to them, particularly if the goals and objectives don't change. And that's probably going to happen more. We might see more of that since we've been using so many Appendix K plans. People may be operating under the same objectives, and staff may be offering the same objectives that just aren't fresh enough anymore, for that person. So I'm just opening the door of thought to be thinking about how current a person's objectives are and how they could possibly change. It's always okay to change objectives and goals within services, and they really are meant to be, person-centered and relevant, so that the person really gets the best advantage out of the service itself. Okay. So let's talk a little bit now about what are not goals. I know it sounds like a paradox, but there's a lot of information to cover, a lot of high points to cover. And I do appreciate your comments along the way. I'll do my best to get them and address them, and if not, at the end. As always, now is not the only time that you have to interact with us. You can come to our provider support hours. You can email us at sdstraining@alaska.gov. You can email me. And if you have a question for me, I'm more than happy to help, especially around habilitation services and goals, objectives, and interventions. But first, again, about things that are not goals or aren't within the scope, I guess, of waiver services. If there are clear and imminent threats to health and safety, you always need to contact local emergency services or call 911. Okay, so sometimes I get questions about, somebody wants to stop doing a behavior, or somebody's having a behavior that's dangerous to themselves and others, and what should the waiver do, or what can the waiver do, or what can staff do, and things like that. I just want to emphasize that waiver services are not a substitute for crisis care. They're They're not a substitute for skilled behavioral health supports or applied behavioral analysis or any other service that needs a licensed professional to provide. If they need services beyond what a waiver provides, and it's somewhere between 911 or local emergency services, the person and or their representative could seek support referral or at least being made aware of supports through the ADRC, DDRC, or Alaska 211 services helpline. Okay, waiver services are designed for help with ongoing everyday needs according to an approved support plan. However, there are some times where people may want a habilitation service to help decrease behavior, and it may be the obvious thing to work with in a plan. It can be rare, but we do want to, include that as a support in a person's life, if that is what is the best thing for them according to them, the person, and their planning team. We always want our provider community to work with the care coordinator for the objectives, including those to potentially help decrease behavior. And so we have some typical statements about something to avoid in order to get closer to living one's life in the community in safety and with dignity. Some of these things may be something that a person could potentially make a change in, and some of them are going to be they're going to be there because of bigger things going on in the person's life, and it may not be something that a waiver support could help with, and you need to have professional support to bring in, to also assist the person. So in general, if a waiver service is going to help, our basic messaging here is that a person is engaging in behavior as a form of communication. Okay, a person is trying to tell you something with your typical behaviors, and what something that is, or even atypical, what that something is may or may not be something within our scope to help with waiver services, but it's always going to be, a communication. So going around this circle here, if a person was screaming and people in the team said, well, we want them to decrease screaming, we have to discover what screaming means to that person. Is it a health and safety thing? Have they, had a health event that we know about or don't know about? Have they been checked out? That's the type of thing I would rule out in all these cases if it's health related or safety related. I would try to uncover that. I'd try to look into that to make sure that the person had the supports they needed so I would know that it's not that, it's a communication thing. So if it is that, I might do something like propose increasing consistent daily routine and using your voice to talk, sing, or make sounds with others in order to start that sort of reciprocity, and that understanding that your communication means something and somebody will respond to it. So the idea here is to offer something that's more functional to replace stopping something. In the case that somebody talks over others or talks too much and pushes others away inadvertently, it doesn't mean to do that, I might propose to increase communication skills and increase listening skills, listening to others more and responding to conversation, and put together with a team to put together some objectives and interventions about that. For a person to decrease kicking, I would need to discover what kicking means to the person. Is it because they like the sound of something when they kick it? When do they kick? What do they kick? What does it mean to that person? So instead of going with just stop kicking, I would look at objectives and interventions to help increase consistent daily routine and using your feet to walk and stay at rest when seated. And I would describe ways to help the person do that instead of just stop kicking. It's pretty abstract. Why is it happening? What do you need to do instead? Discover what the behavior means to the person and offer safe ways to get the result. That one went back to, Hang on. Let me get back to where I was here. Now I'm going forward instead of backwards. Sorry. Stopping inappropriate behavior. That's another one that's kind of vague. What is the inappropriate behavior, and what are some more safe ways that the person could get the same result? This is a case where you might want to consult with a team or perhaps behavioral professional in the case that it impacts health and safety for sure. Okay, staying up all night, using diapers, stopping drugs and alcohol, stopping repetitive movements, and calling attention to yourself. Okay, so increasing sleep time during the night would be the functional replacement for that. I would say to find out what health factors are impacting this behavior. There could be many. Stop using diapers, increasing self-care skills for toileting and hygiene needs, and all the details around that would come from that. Stop using drugs or alcohol. There is a service, intensive active treatment, that may be able to help with that, or maybe other options. Recovery starts the same way, starts with the person and their desire to recover. For repetitive movements, you probably would need to observe what motivates that. It may not be, it may be something that's really about other people observing that person and being uncomfortable with it. You may need to pick your battle, so to speak, if a team is talking about stopping something that really isn't under the control of the person. It would be more like, well, you know, that's just they move their head to be able to hear where they are better or something like that. It may not be something that would even show up in a goal or a intervention to, you know, stop something. And then calling attention to yourself. I would say I might propose a functional objectives around increasing communication skills, developing a person's self-expression, so a person can seek that attention in a positive way and become who they really want to be in life. Maybe they want to be the center of attention. There's lots of things that are ways. There's lots of ways to be the center of attention without, you know, developing negative feelings towards you from others. And you could be a YouTube star or something like that. There's lots of ways that you could do that. Okay, other things that habilitation services are not requested for caregiving tasks that the person needs someone else to do for them, like diapering, toileting, bathing, dressing, assisting with feeding, cooking, cleaning, laundry, and assisting with medication. A HAB service worker can provide the help during the service, but not requested for those needs. A person can be assisted with teaching and training for skill building in those areas for sure through a habilitation service. But we don't request it typically only for the staff to do those things for the person. So we teach and train skills in context, at home or in the community. The service isn't requested for the definition of the service itself, such as Jan needs day HAB to get out into the community. It's more like, what skills will Jan work on in the community during the service with the help of the staff? Habilitation isn't going to be riding around in a car or a van or generically hanging out, or activities that are what the staff wants to do. It's going to be what the person wants to do. Okay, and something active, engagement with everyday life, engagement with the community. Things like this. And then I highlighted the one, or put in red letters, to buy things I like. So this might be something that a habilitation service could help with. To buy things I like could be a goal. Maybe more specifically, I want to select and pay for my own lunch. That would be something that a habilitation service could help with. And here we're talking about who does what. So for the objectives, the steps to get towards to buy things I like, one of them might be select and pay for my own lunch. And that is going to be identified as a collaborative team with the care coordinator and the service provider, and supported by staff with methodology or intervention that the service provider develops, because they're instructions for staff. So objectives are steps to get to the goal. They could be large or small. Best practice is to break it down into steps the person can work on and make sure objectives match the service definition. The care coordinator will talk with the person, their representative, and the provider about what works. They need to be measurable and achievable within about a year. The service provider will be assigning staff to offer the objectives. And in a plan, it's important to make sure the number of steps for each habilitation service supports the amount of service requested. There's no rule about how many objectives are needed. It just needs to make sense with what the person's working on and what the staff will do and the amount of service that's requested. Objectives, again, is a collaboration. So the care coordinator discusses with the person, the representative, if any, and the provider. The service provider will equip their staff to offer the objective and perform the intervention and document the service. So this usually involves some task analysis, which is about how many steps, to do a task or to do an activity. And I've listed steps 1 through 8 on about putting on a coat. Could be more or could be less, and it really depends on the person. So 1 through 8, pick up your coat by the collar, place your right arm in the sleeve, move your arm through until you can see your hand, reach behind with your left hand, locate the left sleeve, that type of thing. When you think about it, skills of independence in the home and community can be broken down to many, many steps as needed for the person. And it could be quite a lot of steps, or it could be not so many, really depending on where the person is and their abilities. How many objectives are enough? It really is based on the functional information in the plan. Measurable means how many steps, how often, and how does the person tell what they have achieved? How do we measure that? Here's another example of an objective. Joe will use a combination of sign language and words to express how he feels or make a choice about activities in which he is engaged within 2 prompts 50% of the time. Okay, so he'll make a choice within 2 prompts half the time that this objective is offered. That's the proposed objective. Methodology and intervention. This is about the staff. What will the staff do to teach the skill? This is the service provider's realm, because the staff are going to be getting instructions to do that. So the service provider will develop and communicate to the care coordinator and equip the staff to offer the objective, perform the intervention, and document it. So here's an example, and there's a few more. Staff will learn Joe's sign language and spoken words. Staff will verbally prompt Joe to choose an activity from his list. If he does not clearly indicate a choice, staff will guide him within his list by category and ask again. For example, Joe, can you go to your list of games and tell me which one you would like? Another example of methodology or intervention. What will staff do to teach the skill? Staff will model the steps to complete the game or activity for Joe. Staff will ask Joe to express how he feels by asking, can you tell me how you feel about that? And these are just varied ideas on, what you could write and how it really comes from the person and what works best for the person. You can adapt your teaching strategies around that. Here's another example. Kara's learning communication skills at home. This is in the personal profile in the plan and in the community. She's shown progress this past year, as evidenced by using the iPad with the speech application to communicate more. Kara likes bowling, movies at the theater, and going out for coffee. We know this because when given a picture schedule, she indicates these places to go on her communication device. She shows this by using the speech application to say yes or no. For these reasons, 4 hours of day habilitation 2 times per week is requested. So for interventions, we want to be descriptive on how staff will actively teach the skill. Overseeing, monitoring, and standing by are not skill building interventions. We want to go with the skill building ones. So here's another example. Using an objective, using a picture schedule of activities, choose a combination of 1 activity and a coffee shop visit, 30 minutes twice per week. Staff will create a picture schedule to match the schedule of day habilitation activities. For each day, show Kara the picture schedule, ask her to identify 1 activity, When she chooses one, ask her to identify the other activity. When she chooses both, staff will restate her choices. Here's another objective as an example. During bowling activity, keep score using the automated board during the game, 30 minutes, 1 time per week. Staff will show and assist Kara to set up the auto board by showing her where to place the scores. Staff will assist Kara by pointing to the board and guiding her hand under hand to enter her own and the other bowlers' names. Staff will explain to Kara how the scores appear as each bowler takes a turn. Staff will ask Kara to read and state out loud scores as they appear. And another one during the movie theater activity, pay for the ticket with debit card and store ticket in pocket. 30 minutes, one time per week. Staff will ask Kara to locate and pull out her debit card from her wallet. Staff will point at the card insert, swipe or tap device for payment, and verbally remind Kara to use the device. Staff will explain the steps of insert, swipe, or tap for payment. Staff will do hand-over-hand assist as needed to complete the payment action. When counter staff offers the paper ticket, staff will remind Kara to place the ticket in her pocket. And so this is just trying to show you to describe in detail what the staff will do. And that's the intervention. Okay, so sort of a summary here. A care coordinator helps the person identify their goals. They get or develop necessary info to put in a support plan. Objectives are an agency and care coordinator collaboration. And for the habilitation services agency, they develop and equip staff to, they develop the interventions, I should say, and equip staff to serve and to document. And some teams may work differently. I've certainly been in situations where, I know the person better than anybody who's on their brand new team. So I might participate more, I might offer more suggestions, that type of thing. And I might not be the role that I've listed here to be the one to do that. But it's still okay. A collaborative team can work like that as well. For documenting services, this is just a quick kind of one sheet here. There is a regulation that covers this and its requirements for provider records. Generally, 1 service per note or section. Contemporaneous, we strongly recommend within 24 hours. Your agency has a policy on turning in notes, so we recommend that you follow that. And then in regulation, contemporaneous means no later than 14 days after the service is done. Service notes could be electronic or handwritten. They include the person's name, service given, date, start and stop time of the service, signature and credential of the staff who did the service, and a narrative annotated case note. So what is that? That is a case note that's written, simple sentences are good, states where the teaching happened, what methods, a la interventions, the staff used to offer the objectives on the current approved support plan. So that means staff needs to know what that says. All right, sometimes habilitation service provider will make a template or something to refer to for the staff so they know what they're writing to when it comes to the objectives and the interventions and the goal. It describes what was the person's response, if there was anything different or unusual that happened, if there was any change in need for support, and if the person declined the objective. Sometimes people, won't participate. So if they declined it and it becomes a pattern, it may be time to change the objective because, it just isn't relevant to the person anymore. A person's not interested in that, and it's not like a fresh objective that means something to that person, perhaps. It could be lots of things, but it should be updated in some way. The approach should be updated. Okay, and not check boxes. It's going to be written sentences describing these factors above. Okay, annotated case notes need to be stored for 7 years from the date of service. They have to be stored in a HIPAA compliant way. All of this has to be HIPAA compliant, not just the storage, but this is usually put forth in your agency's certification packet, and it's going to be in the approved packet how this is done. So your agency is going to know and how to do this, how you're doing this. And you need to be able to retrieve them, of course, in the case of an audit. We are developing more learning modules on habilitation services and teaching strategies for our SDS Training Academy. Everyone is welcome. I know I just wrote habilitation services, provider admins and care coordinators will be welcome to it. But anybody who wants to learn about the topic is also welcome, of course. We're actively working on our online training academy, so you have more resources for training for yourself and sharing with your staff as well. Okay, and so this is my presentation. I'm going to go ahead and go back to my screen share here. Give me 1 second. And I'm going to exit, and I'm going to try to grab your questions quickly. We do have some a few minutes here, so maybe we can go over a couple questions if they're there. All right. All right, I'm finding them. I see them. I'm sorry, it's a little slow. I saw one question past that one. Okay. I've had reviewers feel there's too much time traveling and getting to the restaurant for ordering as the goal. They felt that the goal time was short and the time to get there was too long. Yeah, there's a comment here to reach out to us and ask us for help with that particular case. Yeah, it's a good answer. As always, if you need help with a particular case or developing goals, you're welcome to come to our provider office hours. We can work on that with you. We can help you talk through what some of those things look like. Generally, the ideas here. Let me go back to my summary. The idea here is that it's an active service. We're teaching somebody to try to support their skills that they already have or develop skills to engage in community life. So the purpose of the service is to do that. And a carefully written person-centered goals will actually help to do that. So. Couple of comments about applying time restraints to people and being person-centered. A lot of these things, and I like the point. You're right. The commenter says not everybody moves at the same pace. That's true. I think that if we're more descriptive about how a person needs assistance, and I guess my best way to put it is, some people need rare supports, like it doesn't happen a lot. Some people need intermittent supports where it happens periodically. Some people need moderate supports where it happens more often than periodically, like every day. And some people need pervasive supports, which is where they need help to do everyday things in almost every step of the way. So these are the kinds of descriptors that would be good to put in a plan to describe a person's current skill and current need for support. Might make it a little bit more clear about what's being requested for habilitation services. If a person needs pervasive supports, it may take them quite a long time to more independently be supported to do the habilitation service more independently. I would say to stick with describing the supports. What will the supports do? And that's where our habilitation agency's wisdom can come into play, because they can help articulate that, because it will be describing what staff will do to help. So, other questions, thoughts?
Thanks for that, Kara. I really appreciate going through these pieces. We find that we get a lot of questions about these kind of dynamics because of varying cases. They just have unique components to them because people are unique. So, the best thing to remember is that the person's at the center of this process, and that you guys are in a planning team and can collaborate to make a work product and plan that will help this person achieve their goals. If you find that you have special topics that you'd like education on, please feel free to chat them into the questions box as similar to this kind of special topics today. Sometimes we'll be able to get a guest speaker for you, and sometimes it'll just be us pulling together content for you so that we have a meaningful hour of time when it's not just a, bunch of random updates and like what do we call them? The triage training for something that's, relevant to the moment. So we really want to make sure that we continue to have new and, I guess, not only informative, but applicable content to all providers. So please feel free to drop in your questions or ideas for that. And I know that we're all looking forward to the documentation training. I have lots of questions about that as well, because it's not something that I have a lot of experience in. So I'm sure that many of you would really love to be able to take away some really good practices that you can implement within your agencies. So, but yeah, any other thoughts, guys? We don't have to stay the whole time. We could roll out.
I have nothing, thank you.
This was great information.
We'll go ahead and just kind of let you guys drop in any comments that you want, but you can leave anytime and log out, and hopefully enjoy the day wherever you are in Alaska, at least for 6 minutes, right before the next thing that comes up on your calendar. Thanks for spending your afternoon with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
People are dropping out.